"We spoke to the planner and stopped the wedding," Mom said. "Something about that man feels wrong." When I walked into the kitchen that morning, I instantly knew something was wrong. Mom stood by the counter gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles were white. She looked at me with eyes that were equal parts fear and relief. "We spoke to the planner and stopped the wedding," she said slowly, as if the words were made of glass. "Something about that man feels wrong, sweetheart." My heart dropped. Evan and I had been engaged for 6 months. Everyone said we were perfect together. Same ambitions, same sense of humor, same dreams. But in the past 2 weeks, something had shifted. He started showing up unannounced, questioning who I texted, correcting the way I dressed, saying things like, "You don't need anyone else but me." I brushed it off as stress, pre-wedding nerves, too many decisions, too little time. But then came last night. I found Evan in my driveway at 1 a.m., leaning against his car, staring at my bedroom window. He smiled like he'd been waiting for hours. When I asked why he was there, he said, "I just needed to be sure you were alone." That was the moment something inside me finally listened to the quiet alarm ringing in the back of my mind. Mom must have seen my expression because she stepped closer. "We aren't canceling the relationship," she said. "Just the wedding, until we know you're safe." I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend him. But then my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. "If your mother keeps interfering, I'll handle it myself." I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom read the message over my shoulder. She didn't say a word. She just reached for the phone and blocked his number with steady, practiced hands. For the first time since the engagement, I felt like I could breathe. The wedding could wait. My safety couldn't. And maybe, just maybe, Mom had been right all along. For the rest of the day, the house felt too quiet. Mom kept checking the locks. I kept checking my pulse. Every time my phone lit up, even with a random notification, my stomach tightened. Part of me hoped Evan would try to contact me again, and the other part prayed he wouldn't. By evening, I finally gathered enough courage to open my laptop and look at our shared wedding folder. The vendor spreadsheets, the flower arrangements he insisted on, the honeymoon plans he made without asking me. As I clicked through the files, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before, a hidden folder named Private. At first I thought it was mine, but when I opened it, the breath caught in my throat. Inside were screenshots, hundreds of them, messages from my friends, photos from my Instagram, emails I'd written years ago, even screenshots of conversations I didn't remember having. And then I clicked the last file, a picture taken through my bedroom window, from last night, from the angle of where he'd been standing. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heartbeat felt like a hammer in my ribs. I slammed the laptop shut just as Mom walked in. "What happened?" she asked. I opened my mouth, but I couldn't form words, so I just handed her the laptop. She scrolled for maybe 10 seconds before whispering, "Oh my God." Then she did something unexpected, something that both terrified and comforted me. She grabbed her keys. "We're going to the police," she said firmly. "Tonight." But as we stepped outside, the porch light flickered. A cold gust of wind swept across the yard. And then we saw it. A small white envelope taped to the front door. My name written across it in Evan's handwriting. Mom froze. I froze. Inside the envelope was a single note. "You can cancel the wedding, but you're still mine." At the bottom was a tiny sketch of my house, viewed from the street, from the angle where someone had been watching. Mom pulled me back inside, locking the door 3 times. But even with every lock secured, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing just beyond the darkness, watching, waiting. Neither Mom nor I slept that night. Every floorboard creak felt like a footstep. Every shadow outside the window looked like a figure. By morning, the house smelled like strong coffee and fear. Mom kept pacing, checking the curtains, muttering, "We should have gone to the police last night. We should have gone right away." I wanted to tell her she was right. But before I could answer, there was a loud knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Not rushed, not panicked, confident. Mom stiffened. No one knocks like that this early. My breath turned cold. She motioned for me to stay back and approached the door. She didn't open it, just looked through the peephole. For a full second she didn't move. Then she whispered, "It's not him. It's an officer." I exhaled shakily as she opened the door. A tall police officer stepped inside, introducing himself as Detective Harris. His expression was serious, like he already knew more than we did. "I need to speak with both of you," he said. "It's about Evan Porter." My chest tightened. "What about him?" The detective sighed. "We received a report from one of your neighbors early this morning. They saw a man matching Evan's description sitting in a car outside your home last night. Engine off. No lights. Just watching." Mom put a hand over her mouth. "And," the detective continued, opening his notebook, "your ex-fiancé has a history, a sealed case from 3 years ago." My heart stuttered. "What kind of case?" He hesitated for a moment, then answered quietly, "Obsessive behavior, surveillance of a former partner, restraining orders, violating them." The room began spinning. Everything inside me dropped like a stone. Mom gripped my hand. "We need to know," the detective said, "if he's tried to contact you since the wedding was canceled." I handed him the envelope. He read the note, and his face changed. Not just concern, something darker. "He's escalating," he murmured. "This isn't about heartbreak. This is control." Then he looked at me, his voice stern but gentle. "Don't go anywhere alone. Keep your phone on you at all times. And if you see him, don't engage. Call us immediately." Before leaving, he added one more thing. "And check your car before you drive today. Obsessive individuals often tamper with vehicles to create situations where their victims need saving. It's a pattern we've seen before." I felt physically sick. After he left, I walked to my bedroom window, peeking through the curtains. And that's when I saw it. Parked across the street. A dark gray car. Windows tinted. Engine off. Exactly like the detective described. I froze, because even though I couldn't see inside, I knew someone was sitting there, staring straight at my house. Waiting. I backed away from the window so quickly I almost tripped. My voice barely came out. "Mom, he's here." She rushed over, but I grabbed her wrist before she reached the curtain. "Don't look," I whispered. "He'll know we saw him." For a moment we both just stood there, breathing shallowly, listening to the silence outside. A silence that felt too heavy, too intentional. Finally, Mom pulled me into the hallway. "We're not staying here," she said firmly. "Pack a bag. We're leaving now." I didn't argue. Couldn't. My hands were trembling too hard to even zip the suitcase properly. Mom grabbed her purse, her keys, but when she opened the drawer where she always kept her car keys, they were gone. She rummaged frantically. "No, no, no. They were right here." My stomach twisted. "Mom, he tampered with my car last night," the detective said. The house phone suddenly rang, cutting me off. Mom and I froze. We never used the landline. Only telemarketers ever called it. Not friends. Not family. It rang again. And again. Mom slowly picked it up, only to drop it instantly. Her face went pale as chalk. "What?" I choked out. "Who was it?" She swallowed hard. "It was him." The phone rang again. This time the voicemail picked up, and we heard his voice echo through the quiet house. "I told you not to hide from me." Mom reached into her pocket, frantically grabbing her cell phone. But before she could dial 911, we heard it. A noise from outside. A slow, deliberate metallic click. Like someone was testing a door handle. Then another. He was trying the side door. Mom rushed into the kitchen and grabbed the only thing she could find. A heavy cast iron pan. Her breathing was sharp, panicked. I backed into the corner, my heart pounding so loudly I thought he'd hear it through the walls. We listened. Another click. Another jiggle. And then, silence. The kind of silence that makes your bones cold. Mom whispered, "Maybe he left." A shadow moved across the back window. He hadn't left. He'd moved. And then his voice floated in from just outside the glass, muffled but unmistakable. "You can't ignore me forever." Mom screamed, dialing the police with shaking fingers, shouting our address so fast it barely sounded like words. I backed away from the window as the shadow grew taller, closer. Then, a loud bang on the glass. The window held, but only barely. I felt tears spill before I even realized I was crying. Mom grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the hallway. "Inside the pantry," she hissed. "Now!" We ran, locked ourselves inside, pressed our backs against the shelves, listening to the pounding getting louder, closer. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then, faintly through the door, the sound changed. Sirens. Distant, but coming fast. Mom clutched my hand so tightly it hurt. Outside, the banging stopped. Then footsteps, running. Then nothing. Just the sirens growing louder. We stayed in the pantry until officers were already inside the house calling our names. But even when we stepped outside, surrounded by police, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't safe yet. Because he wasn't caught. He had vanished. And men like him don't vanish because they're scared. They vanish because they're planning the next move. 2 patrol cars stayed outside our house for the next few hours, their lights casting restless flashes across the walls. But even with officers nearby, I felt exposed. Hunted. Detective Harris arrived just before noon, his expression darker than before. "We didn't find his vehicle," he said. "He abandoned it 2 streets over. No fingerprints. No trace." He knew exactly what he was doing. Mom sat on the couch gripping a mug she hadn't touched. "So what now?" she asked. "We're issuing an emergency protective order," the detective said. "But you need to understand, men like him, they don't always respect pieces of paper." I swallowed. I already knew that. "And one more thing," he added. "Has Evan ever mentioned his family?" I shook my head. "He always avoided the topic." The detective frowned. "Because we reached out to his listed emergency contact, and the number belongs to a psychiatric care facility." My breath hitched. "He was a patient there 2 years ago," the detective continued. "Not voluntarily." Mom whispered, "Oh my God." "He was treated for attachment disorder, delusional romantic fixation, and—" He paused. "Violent response patterns." My stomach dropped. Detective Harris looked straight at me. "You need to leave the house for a while. Today. Now. We'll escort you." We packed essentials into 2 backpacks and rushed outside. I expected to feel safer as we drove away behind the patrol car. But something inside me resisted the idea that distance alone would help. When we arrived at a safe house, a small apartment the police department used for emergency relocations, I collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Mom tried to act strong, but I could see the fear beneath the surface. As evening fell, the detective stopped by again. "I'll check on you tomorrow morning," he said. "Keep your phones charged. Keep the doors locked. We've assigned a car to patrol the area." When he left, the apartment felt too still, too quiet. Around midnight, Mom finally dozed off in the bedroom. I stayed in the living room, unable to sleep. Every sound made me flinch. And then, just as I started drifting off, my phone buzzed. I froze. Unknown number. With trembling fingers, I opened the message. 3 photos. The first, a picture of the apartment building we had just moved into. The second, picture of our front door. The third, a picture of me through the living room window. Taken seconds ago. My throat closed. My vision blurred. Then another message came in. "You can run. I can follow." A soft noise came from the window behind me. A rustle. A breath. Presence. Very slowly, I turned my head. Outside the glass, barely illuminated by the streetlight, a silhouette stood watching. Not moving. Not blinking. Just there. Waiting. I didn't scream. Couldn't. The terror was so absolute it froze every muscle in my body. The silhouette outside the window didn't move. Just stood there, inches from the glass, as if waiting for me to make the first sound. My heart pounded loud enough to drown out everything else. Finally, instinct took over. I stumbled backward, grabbing my phone with shaking fingers, and dialed 911. The operator answered immediately. Emergency services? What is your? He's here, I whispered. He found us. He's watching through the window. Please send someone. I peeked at the glass again. The silhouette was gone, vanished, as if the night had swallowed him whole. The operator kept talking, trying to calm me down, but I couldn't hear anything except the roaring of my own pulse. Within minutes, 2 police cars screeched into the parking lot. Their lights lit up the entire building, turning night into a fractured red-blue glare. Officers rushed the entrance, banging on our door. Mom woke up terrified as I unlocked it. What happened? What's going on? He was here, I gasped. He was right outside. The officers swept the apartment, then the hallway, then the building perimeter. But after 20 long minutes, one of them came back shaking his head. No sign of anyone. But he was here. You can see smudges on the outside of the window. Someone stood there recently. Mom covered her mouth with her hand, fighting tears. Detective Harris arrived shortly after, hair messy, tie loose, clearly pulled out of bed. Start from the beginning, he said, voice low and controlled. I showed him the photos. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened with something between anger and dread. He's escalating, he said. A rapid escalation like this is extremely dangerous. Mom swallowed. We can't stay here. No, Harris agreed. You can't. He walked to the window, studying the smudges, then turned back with a decision already made. There's another safe location. More secure. More remote. We'll move you there tonight. But before we could gather our things, one of the officers rushed in from outside. Detective, we found something in the parking lot. We followed them out. There, beneath the dim yellow streetlight, lying in the middle of the pavement like an offering, was a small object. A single key. I felt my stomach twist when I recognized it. It was my house key, the one that had gone missing. Attached to it was a note wrapped in clear tape. Harris picked it up carefully with gloves. He read it, then looked at me with a heaviness that made my knees weak. What does it say? I whispered. He exhaled slowly. It says. He paused. If you won't open the door, I will. My blood ran cold. It means, Harris added quietly, he's planning to force entry. And he's leaving messages because he wants you terrified. This isn't just obsession anymore. This is fixation with intent. Mom squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. We're leaving, she said. Now. But just as we turned to go back inside to pack, a sound echoed across the empty parking lot. A soft, distant click, like a camera shutter, or a phone taking a picture. Harris shouted, "Who's there?" The officers sprinted toward the noise, flashlights slicing through the darkness. But the lot was empty. Too empty. Then my phone buzzed again. One new message. A new photo. A shot of me standing outside with the officers right this second. Taken from somewhere close, somewhere hidden, somewhere watching. And below it, a single line. You look even prettier when you're scared. My breath shattered. Harris grabbed my shoulder, pulling me back toward the apartment. Get inside, he said. Right now. We're moving you immediately. He's closer than we thought, and he's not going to stop. The officers moved fast. Within minutes, they escorted Mom and me to an unmarked police SUV. Detective Harris sat in the passenger seat, constantly checking the side mirrors, scanning shadows, refusing to blink for more than half a second. The night felt heavier now, like even the air was watching us. The SUV pulled out of the parking lot, turning onto an empty road lined with tall, swaying trees. The headlights carved a narrow tunnel of light through the darkness. Mom squeezed my hand. We'll be okay, she whispered, but her voice was too thin to believe. About 15 minutes into the drive, Harris turned around to face me. There's something I didn't want to say earlier, he said quietly. But you deserve to know. My stomach tightened. What is it? He hesitated, and for the first time since I met him, he looked unsure. Evan wasn't just in treatment for obsession, Harris said. He had a pattern. a specific pattern. Mom's breathing hitched. What pattern? Harris continued, voice low. He fixates on someone, builds a fantasy, and when that fantasy breaks, he becomes unstable. He becomes convinced that the person belongs to him entirely. And Harris stopped. Detective, I whispered. Just say it. He exhaled. He's never let go willingly. A cold tremor went through me. The driver suddenly slowed down. A dark shape lay across the road ahead. Long, heavy, metallic. What is that? Mom breathed. The SUV rolled closer. It wasn't a tree branch. It wasn't debris. It was a strip of metal spikes, the kind used to puncture tires. A homemade spike strip. Oh hell! The driver muttered, slamming the brakes. Reverse. Now! Harris barked. The SUV lurched into reverse for several feet, until headlights flared behind us. Blinding. Close. Another car. Blocking the way. Is that him? I whispered. My voice barely sound. Harris didn't answer. He didn't need to, because at that moment, the headlights of the car behind us turned off, and the silhouette of a man stepped out. Tall, still, silent. He stood between the two vehicles, his outline lit only by moonlight. Then, he raised something in his hand. Not a weapon. A phone. A flash fired. He took a picture of us, trapped. Mom let out a strangled gasp. The man, Evan, took one slow step forward. Harris drew his gun. Stay in the car, he ordered. Do not move. But before anyone could act, Evan suddenly sprinted toward the trees, vanishing into darkness like he was swallowed by it. The driver floored the gas, swerving around the spikes, nearly spinning out as the SUV tore down the road. Harris shouted into the radio, calling for units, helicopters, dogs, anything. But I didn't hear the rest, because my phone buzzed again. One new message. Sent 10 seconds ago. A video. My fingers shook as I tapped it. The footage was dark, shaky, recorded from the trees, pointed right at our SUV. Zooming in. Closer, closer, until the camera framed my face through the back window. And then his voice whispered from behind the camera. Don't worry, I'm coming with you. The video ended, and for the first time, I realized he was no longer following us. He was shadowing us, matching our route, anticipating every move. He knew exactly where we were going next, and he planned to get there first. The forest held its breath around us. The SUV sat dead in the middle of the deserted road, surrounded by tall trees that seemed to lean closer with every passing second. Harris gripped his gun, knuckles white, eyes scanning the darkness. My phone vibrated again. Another picture. Another angle. He wasn't just watching. He was circling us. Mom whispered, We can't stay here. He'll break a window. He'll drag her out. No, Harris snapped. No one opens a door. Not unless I say so. But Evan was already one step ahead. A sharp crack echoed through the night. The sound of metal hitting metal. The rear bumper. The driver flinched. He's trying to break in. Another blow. Harder this time. The SUV rocked. Stay down. Harris barked. Then silence. A different kind of silence. Heavier. Intentional. A shadow shifted near the treeline. Then a voice, calm. Steady. Too close. You're making this harder than it needs to be. My blood turned to ice. Harris slowly rose just enough to peek over the back seat. The look on his face told me everything. He's coming to the driver's side, he whispered. Get ready to run when I say. Run? Into the forest? Into the dark where he was waiting? But there was no time to argue. A hand slapped against the driver's window. Then another. Then, bam! He slammed something into the glass, something heavy. The window cracked but didn't break. Not yet. Open the door. Evan shouted, voice shaking with rage. Let her out. The driver stomped the horn, hoping the noise would scare him off. Instead, it sent him into a frenzy. He smashed the glass again. Crack. A second time. Crack. A third. Shatter. The window exploded inward. Mom screamed. Harris lunged forward, shoving the driver down and aiming his weapon through the broken window. "Police! Get back!" he roared. A figure darted into the darkness, too fast to target. "Move! Everyone out!" Harris yelled. "To the trees now!" Mom grabbed my arm and we scrambled out the passenger side, stumbling into the cold night air. Branches whipped at our faces as we plunged into the forest. Harris ran behind us. We could hear Evan. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't stalking. He was coming, snapping branches, panting breaths, feet pounding the earth. Mom squeezed my hand. "Don't look back. Keep running." But I did look, and I saw him, Evan, charging through the trees like a wild animal, eyes wide, face twisted, fixated on only one thing, me. He lunged. I screamed. Harris tackled him from the side, both of them crashing into the dirt. Evan fought like someone possessed, snarling, clawing, grabbing at Harris's throat. "Run!" Harris choked out. Mom pulled me forward, but Evan's voice followed us, broken and frantic. "Come back. You're mine." A gunshot split the night, then silence. Mom and I froze. Another gunshot, then nothing. We stood there, shaking, clinging to each other, waiting for a third shot, for footsteps, for anything. Finally, Harris's voice echoed through the trees. "It's over." We stumbled back to the clearing, breathless, terrified, and trembling. Evan lay on the ground, face down, hands zip-tied behind his back, shouting curses and desperate pleas through gritted teeth. "Let me go. She needs me. She loves me." But his voice no longer had power. Not anymore. Police sirens approached in the distance. Loud, steady, real. This time they weren't too late. Mom wrapped her arms around me as officers swarmed the scene. Harris exhaled deeply, wiping sweat and dirt from his face, nodding at me. "You're safe now," he said softly. "He'll never come near you again." I believed him. For the first time in days, I believed him. As the officers dragged Evan away screaming into the night, I closed my eyes and let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for weeks. It was over, really over. And though the fear might take time to fade, so would the strength I'd found within myself. I survived him, and I would never let someone like him near my life again.